That's right. Welcome in, welcome back, folks, to a Corona commitment prediction edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do it, subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd appreciate it very much. Hit notifications so you don't miss anytime anything new drops. Give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content. Appreciate that as well. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishindy@gmail.com. Audio only, anywhere you want me, you can get me. Call in line 312-988-15. With me today to make some predictions, it is none other than at Mason Plummer _. Follow him as well with the Golden Homers podcast. Mason, thanks for being here.
Of course.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I like that. That's a beautiful shirt. If you're going to wear anybody's face on you right now, I'm all for it being that guy. So we have a lot to cover. We have a big week coming up with some potential commitment dates. I want to go over some of that. A lot of shows are doing their predictions of these commitments we have coming up. I got a couple offshoots that we need some tangents with some of this stuff that I want your opinion on. We're going to hit a lot of that. Also, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot more fun to do these prediction shows when you got a pretty good feeling Notre Dame's lining up to be looking pretty here. So that helps with the energy as far as doing this show. First things first, though, before we get into recruiting, Mason, very, very unfortunate news. Achilles tear, J.D. Price out. What is your immediate reaction to that news?
Immediate reaction being that I've been spreading the news that I think Price is better than Diggs already. And then, so that's not going to come to fruition for a while. And then that's the worst injury, I think, that you could pick for a running back. I mean, it's a bad injury in itself, but especially for a running back. So bad news all around. I'm really high on the kid. You'll have to see how he ends up mending, but we're not going to hear about him for about another year. So that's super tough, but I'm all on the Audric Estime train. Let's go.
Well, you're going to have to be on that Audric Estime train. I know he's built like a tank. We're going to need him to be durable like a tank. If you just look at it, you love that dynamic of like Chris Tyree and what he brings his skill set offset with Estime. Tyree has a little bit of an injury history here. Like you're getting kind of thin there. In a group that we used to look at a couple months ago and go, you know what? I feel pretty darn good about this group. So that's a big hit, and we're not even into camp yet. I'm going to have a whole show about this dynamic coming out in a day or two, but we had to mention it. And so thoughts to him, great kid, heal up, do all you got to do. But it's tough news all around for everybody involved. Just bad.
Yeah, I got two things on that. It makes the addition of Jabron Payne huge. That people thought that kind of a weird addition, but it looks great now. And then secondly, I don't know if you saw the Estime changed his number to 7. That's going to look crazy with how big he is.
Yeah, I did see that, but I didn't think of it that way. That's good. I like that. So quick recovery to him. Big blow to the entire program. So that's unfortunate. So as we look at what we have going on as Notre Dame fans here, it seems like Notre Dame is likely in position to receive multiple commitments here very, very soon, unless a lot of people who do this for a living are way off. All right, so I'm going to go over some of these players, their commitment dates, and if you still feel like they're Notre Dame guys, a lot of people are very, very confident in a lot of these picks. First, let's cover one that's already with us. Okay, top 50 player in the 2024 class, tight end Jack Larson picks Notre Dame. Impressive offer list as well. Bama, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Clemson. It feels, Mason, like this tight end lineage at Notre Dame's turning into what this wide receiver lineage is at Ohio State. And I almost feel bad at times, Mason. It's like we're so used to getting these talented tight ends. I don't feel like they get celebrated as much in a recruiting class as some of these other positions, which is good because we're used to getting the next good guy, 4-star, 5-star. But we shouldn't take this for granted. This is a great get, even though it's the one class out. What are your impressions of Jack Larson and his commitment?
Yeah, the redheaded kid commits to Notre Dame, right, from the Catholic high school. So yeah, you like what you see there. But yeah, it almost becomes expected to where any other school just about in the country, this is really celebrated. Jack Larson, that's a big win. You're getting one of the top kids in the 2024 class. 2024 class continues to keep on moving on. So really good. I like what his skill set, and I'm excited to see how he improves. I think he fits what the current Notre Dame offense is doing really well, and that he can block and receive in a really high rate. And I think he's a good complement to Cooper Flanagan as well. So I like the different skill sets Notre Dame's bringing all these different skill sets in, and then put them all out there and kind of see how it goes. So and I'm really excited to see what Eli Raridan does. So I know a lot of people are high on Holden State. So all these different skill sets bring into the tight end room. I think that's huge. Notre Dame, they're known as tight end U. At least I think in a lot of circles, you can argue Miami, Iowa, whatever, but there's so many different skill sets, and I think guys are all going to have their time to shine. So I'm really excited about what's being brought in and the future of the tight end position, big time.
Yep, and you just keep that lineage going. A lot of production NFL, Notre Dame's got some of that going at offensive line that helps them in recruiting as well. So that's beautiful. The other, how I said some of these tight ends don't get the fanfare they deserve when they commit. Similarly to that, where else that happens? Sometimes with like early guys that commit to a recruiting class and they're very highly ranked, but you've seen them there so long that you almost glance by them. That's wrong too. You know who's like that? Brennan Vernon's a guy like that. He was in so early, and he's a guy who wants to get to work, get in the weight room, not on social media doing a lot of all that as much as some other guys. And you almost forget what a talented beast he is, sitting there quietly in your recruiting class, it's all equal, but it's recency bias almost, with that kind of thing.
It's the same thing that happens kind of in the NFL draft too. It's prospect fatigue. The guy, he's a surefire first-round pick. You get tired of seeing the name. Oh, maybe he's not that good, And then guys that commit this early too, you're going to see them fall. That's just how it goes with the rankings. Guys aren't going to camps anymore. They're not taking visits, so they fall. Like Brennan Vernon, did he deserve to take a little bit of a dip? Yeah, but as far as he's dropped, I think he's a great talent. Was he a 5-star? No, but I've seen him down in the hundreds, 200s. There's no way. He's a top 100 player.
I'm going to tell you this right now about Brennan Vernon. I've gotten to know his family the last, year and a half. And all he wants to do is get in better shape to come into Notre Dame, be ready to destroy. Like his focus is, it isn't playing games. It isn't getting likes and retweets on Twitter and Instagram. It's not. From his family, it's John. He is so focused on doing everything he needs to do to come in here and be ready to destroy. Like that mindset is absolutely beautiful, and I love it. So that's one that came to my mind, and I have a little bit of that family history. You're going to be glad that he's doing all that, not tweeting and doing all this stuff. So
yeah,
let's get into this week. Depending on when this video drops, I'm still debating on the best schedule for this week. It may even be right when this video ends based on when it gets released. Cam Williams, Chicago area 2024 4-star, set to announce. Notre Dame seems to be in great position to land him. It's widely known he grew up as a big Michigan fan. You know how I feel about those double whammies. What are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, so in the lack of social media attention that you see or social media use that you see with Brennan Vernon, Cam Williams is all over it. Very pro ND. And whenever you see a guy take a visit, you hear it goes well from the guys that are really in the know, the Tom Loyes, Mike Singers of the world. And then he decides he's going to drop his commitment date before dropping like his last top group. That points to good things. So you kind of follow the tea leaves, if you will, kind of following, the little hints he's dropping here and there. Looks to be good for Notre Dame, and that's a huge win. Wide receiver is a big position of need, and I think the 2024 class, if you take 3 or 4 in the 2023, take 3 or 4 again in 2024, and you're remolding the wide receiver room that was depleted already this year, and you're bringing in guys that I think can play, potentially day one, if not their second year. And there wasn't a lot of guys that you could say that about in Notre Dame recently. So that's big time. Wide receiver is a position of need. That's what takes you to the next level. Cam Williams is a stud, no doubt about it.
That is beautiful to hear. One more thing I want to add about this that I think is going to become relevant more so in the 2024 class. when I've looked about the early recruiting and looking at some of these players, Chicago is looking at having a really strong year for talent in 2024. Not usually an area extremely rich with talent. It isn't like down south, SEC land. It isn't California, So Chicago comes and goes. 2024 is known as a good talent class for Chicago. There's an opportunity there for Tommy Reese and Al Golden and Freeman and all of them. Recreate that talent pipeline from Chicago on the Skyway to the toll road, off that ramp, and to South Bend. So I can't wait to see the inroads being made by this staff in Chicago in 2024. Have you heard the same thing? A lot of talent that year?
There is a lot of talent that year, and you'd like to see Notre Dame continue to capitalize on that. That shouldn't necessarily be a guarantee, but at one point it was. A guy from the Chicago area, they don't really have any great teams there. Northwestern, Notre Dame, it's a little bit different. So once you get that Notre Dame offer, it's like almost like a lock. So I'd like to get back to that. Recruiting is such a wild world at this point. Some guys want to get out of there, but you like what Notre Dame's at. Recruit, the area is local to you, and they bring in Indiana talent this year too. So bring in, keep your area around the best players in Michigan coming to Notre Dame, that kind of thing. Recruit the hell out of the Midwest, and then continue to hit the coast as they have been. Continue to build that pipeline in New Jersey. The national recruiting is still paying off. I'm loving it.
Yeah, and hey, you want to know how old I am compared to you, Mason? I'm going to illustrate for you just how much older I am than you. You bring up Chicago and that talent pipeline, and Notre Dame used to have a heyday, especially in the old Chicago Catholic League, pulling all those linemen over to South Bend. I'm old enough to remember that the high school I went to, when we were little kids, we used to get excited when a little guy named Lou Holtz was in town on a Friday night scouting out some talent. Like, that's how old I am, that I remember that being a big deal when the rumor was Dad and Grandpa would go, guess who's supposed to be at the game tonight? So that's how far back I go. Give me that Chicago Southside Catholic League pipeline. Give me it again.
Yeah, and if they're from the South Side, they're White Sox fans too.
Can't beat it, except I wouldn't wish that on them.
It's a lot of pain.
It's rough, but I'm already dealing with this virus. I don't need anything else, okay? Let's move on to July 1st. Micah Bell, very, very gifted athletic corner, set to commit. Notre Dame expects to land this commit over Texas Ole Miss. What are your thoughts? Good position, right?
Yeah, good position for a couple guys in the secondary. So, yeah, I like where Notre Dame's at, and has been super active. But, again, following the visits, kind of following where he's going, announces the commitment date. That's all you need to know there. He looks to be in good position for Notre Dame. Obviously, wait and let the kid have his moment, but all signs pointing good towards Notre Dame for sure.
That's beautiful. Now, this next one I'm going to bring up has an interesting new wrinkle that I'm sure you're going to have an obvious opinion on. We get to July 3rd, Rico Flores. Now, that's a well-known name in Notre Dame circles as a top wide receiver target. I believe he was down to Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State, I think. Seemed like it might have been trending to be an Ohio State-Notre Dame battle for a while. Then Ohio State went ahead and picked up every top wide receiver you could want, basically, in a week that hasn't already ended up at USC somehow. And it almost seems like that kind of shifts the odds back in Notre Dame's favor. So I don't know if it's ideal to be excited about a guy that another school almost doesn't have room for. But at the same time, we are where we are. You got to start somewhere building that talent and depth in that room. And I'm all for it. Do you agree? Is that how you see it?
Beggars can't be choosers. I mean, Notre Dame struggled at the wide receiver position. He's absolutely a take for Notre Dame. And he's a take for every other school that had, other than Ohio State, who brings in 2 5-stars and a very highly ranked 4-star, could be a 5-star by the end of within a week. And it doesn't happen really anywhere else. I think in most normal cycles, Rico Flores is a take for Ohio State, but their receiver numbers are just stupid, stacking 5-stars on 5-stars. So, you don't like to necessarily be the second option for a guy because that kind of screams transfer. But if he gets in and does well at Notre Dame and is able to play early as he should be able to, there's genuine interest there. So no reason to really be concerned. It looks like a Notre Dame now that I would have put in a pick, virtually or whatever for Ohio State had that not all happened. But signs are pointing towards Notre Dame as it stands for sure.
Yep. And like you said, man, beggars can't be choosers. And this is a guy Notre Dame fans would jump at any other time. Don't let this dynamic throw you off. We need numbers of guys with high upside potential to fill that room out. And I would be thrilled, and all Notre Dame people should be, if we land his services. Then we get to 4th of July. Don't have 20 beers, blow off your digits in the, hey, look at this one. Don't do that, or you might miss the announcement of Christian Gray, another very gifted secondary player. This is another one with the wrinkle, though. That's where these are getting interesting to me. Seems like a Notre Dame LSU battle. That's going to hit close to home for all of us. Big fight here isn't, to me, Brian Kelly at LSU. It's his high school coach, Steeples, who Brian Kelly hired. Can Notre Dame pull this off despite that bond, land him in South Bend?
So Mom's pro-Irish. They've kind of made that known. And then, that's a great hire by Brian Kelly. No doubt about it, to bring in Steeples. I don't know how great of a coach he is, but that's Christian Gray's mentor. And if anything, that screams how good of a player Christian Gray is. And I've been saying that for months. I knew he was a good player. I didn't necessarily know how good until a video dropped of him, the way he flips his hips. And then he's a freak. He's a genetic freak is what he is. His arms go down past his knees and he runs like the wind. I mean, he's exactly what Notre Dame needs to get over the next level. And that's kind of what you're seeing, right? Notre Dame, if you had to pick a couple positions, wide receiver and corner at the very top of what Notre Dame needs to get to the next level. Christian Gray is exactly that. As you said, Notre Dame LSU battle. Notre Dame seems to be in good position, but this is one where I'm not feeling super great until you get to decision day, right? So anything can happen. Notre Dame's, I think they're favored, but anything can happen, especially in LSU. Your mentor, a lot of people in his ear. So Notre Dame's in a good spot, but I want to see it all come to fruition.
Yeah, and most beat writers and recruiting guys I've seen kind of feel the same way. They feel good, and they feel good about Notre Dame's chances, and at the same time, they're saying if they pull it off, it'd be a huge feat to overcome location proximity, being right there, comfort of home, all of that, plus the relationship he has with his high school guy. That is a genius move by Brian Kelly. I'll give him credit on that. Even if it isn't just for this guy, he has that pipeline to all those kids and all those high school connections. That's a good local hire by Brian Kelly to build those inroads in places Kelly's not familiar. That's a good hire by him. Then you just have to see the practical side of it. But all the off the field part, it all makes perfect sense, and it's a wise move. Now, you said something that really piques my interest. The next bullet point on my outline is wide receiver and corner are perpetual positions of need for Notre Dame, and you need dudes, not just bodies, to cover your numbers. There's a difference. I've gone through too many cycles where Notre Dame could just say, we hit our numbers. Numbers are numbers, dudes are dudes. That's different. We need dudes. And all the guys we went over fall into one of those two categories of need, and it's looking really good for Notre Dame. Gotta love it. I love seeing the biggest needs take priority. Love it.
Well, yeah, and why, you put in the effort to get a Christian Gray, a guy who I think can play day one, rather than, you're taking your chance on, you take 3 or 4 corners in each class. They're in the past, they've all been 3 stars for the most part. So you're banking on one of those 2 guys to hit, and they're 3 stars. You don't really know. Occasionally you get a Julian Love, but occasionally you get a guy like Caleb Oford who barely makes it through a year and he's gone. So why not take your chance with 4 and 5-star guys? You're going to really shoot for the stars, but that lack of recruiting before isn't here anymore. So you're going to see that a lot more often, and it's going to bring a whole new element to Notre Dame, to where the pass rush has been there before, but can you defend passes in the air other than when you had Kyle Hamilton? Not really. So now you can have a real lockdown guy. It's a whole new dimension. And once it's seen that you can catch passes on the offensive side of the ball as a receiver and make a big name for yourself And if you can defend passes and become a lockdown corner and make a big name for yourself at a place like Notre Dame, I think that opens up the floodgates in terms of recruiting. And that's so big.
Yep, I agree. I just love to see that that what we see as fans as top priorities, you can literally see the staff prioritizing it. It brings my blood pressure down just because it isn't just all behind this sheet, and I'm hoping they're doing the right thing. Like, you could see them putting in the work in the areas we need it. And it's just wonderful to see. I can't say enough about how impressed I am about this entire operation so far. So I believe of the imminent date, like guys that have commitment dates set that are imminent, that's it. Is there anybody in the very near future I missed before I throw a couple other things your way?
Without, like, I'm real big on not ruining a guy's moment. There's some guys that I think will pop soon that aren't necessarily super widely known. So be on the lookout for that. But nothing that's like out there, like super widely known, like a guy like a Christian Gray that's, July 4th, he said that months ago. So I think Notre Dame's in for good news on a couple of other guys, some bigger targets that are ready to finally make their decisions. So hopefully some a good string of good news, good luck here for Notre Dame.
So we may hit some of these guys, because what I wanted to go over next is a group of players where Notre Dame seems to be heavily in the mix or even crystal balled for and favored for, but I don't believe there are set commitment dates. But Notre Dame people tend to feel pretty good about them. I'm going to go down some of these names and tell me what you think. What's the deal with Ronan Hanafan?
Looks like Notre Dame, Clemson, potentially Alabama. I like where Notre Dame's at. It just depends on really where he wants to play. But Notre Dame has seemed to make it known that, wherever you want to play, we want to bring you in because we think you're a stud athlete. And I'm all for that. I personally think he's great as a receiver. And if he's your third or fourth guy, the staff doesn't view him as the third or fourth guy at all. But based on the way he's ranked, if he's your third or fourth receiver, that's a hell of a receiver class. And I think that's, if he does come to Notre Dame, I think that's where he would end up. I have Notre Dame about like 70-30 over Clemson at the moment. But yeah, this one's definitely interesting. All signs seem to be pointing towards Notre Dame, but kind of have to see how this one plays out.
What about Jaden Osbury, linebacker?
I like him a lot. I didn't like the Michigan visit. It seems like he wants to get out of LSU territory, and Michigan and Notre Dame are in close proximity. So I know he likes Notre Dame a lot. I know he's interested in LSU still, but like I said, it seems like he wants to get out of that area. So I don't really know what to make of that. I think he's a good prospect, but I don't know necessarily how he fits in the current Notre Dame defense. I think he's a good linebacker. You only want to take maybe 2, maybe 3 in this class, considering the haul that came in last year. So I like Osbury a lot. This one I don't feel as sure on as I did maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Interesting. And similarly, I believe this is also a guy that I've seen recently spent some time in Ann Arbor, Jason Moore, defensive lineman.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. I don't really think Michigan's in the picture. I think Ohio State's much more of a threat. No matter what, wherever they were filling up on numbers, I think Jason Moore is really interesting. Notre Dame has a hell of a defensive line class already, but then you why not bring in a top 50 player? I think he's really interested in Notre Dame, but again, that's another one I don't feel as great as I did 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'd like to see him visit again. I don't know exactly where his visits are on the cards, off the top of my head, but I'd like to see him visit again and lock him down, give him the full court press, if you will. But yeah, why not add him? I think he's a great player, and I think he fits in at the 3 technique really well. Hoping Ohio State kind of stops recruiting him.
What about offensive lineman Jagasaw? We still looking good there? I don't want to take anything for granted with offensive line.
Yeah, Jagasaw is interesting. I wish Michigan wasn't in the picture as much as they are. I think that one's getting closer to 50-50 than it was. So Notre Dame has room for him. I feel better about him than Freeling. I'll say that. I think Notre Dame lands one of the two. I don't think they get both.
Now, here's another one that's interesting. Jordan Greathouse. Okay, 4-star wide receiver, offers a little bit more of an electric skill set than some of the other guys in the class or that we're looking at. We already went over what a big position of need that is. You lose Tate to Ohio State. That was a big, shiny dream. You got Gallagher, West Virginia. So then your net of these wide receivers we're in it for keeps whittling down. I don't want to say it's a must get, but it's a really, really want to have. Is it not?
No, it's a must get, and this is the one of this group I feel the best about. Actually, I'm very confident Notre Dame gets Jaden Greathouse. I think he's a great player too. He brings a different skill set than Braylon James and Rico Flores and Ronan Hanafan, really. So that's what I mentioned about, just getting positions with differing skill sets. Like I said at tight end earlier, and they all fit together well. You're not getting a bunch of 6'4" guys like Notre Dame was getting before, where you have McKinley and Miles Boykin on there, Chase Claypool on the field at the same time. That's not really happening anymore. So, I feel great about Jaden Greathouse.
That's good to hear. And then I've heard this debated a little bit about how aggressively or not aggressively enough Notre Dame's pursuit of Myles Cates is currently. And what interests me about him is that's a guy that you could take as a great athlete, and then again, between a couple of major positions of need, figure out where you need him, whether it's wide receiver or secondary. So where are we at with him? Because I like that kind of flexibility that a guy like that would give you.
So it seemed like for a long time, the recruitment was only strange. There was genuine interest on both sides, but the recruitment was strange because he wanted to play offense, and Notre Dame saw him as a better player on defense. It seems like they're opening up more to him being on offense, and I don't know exactly what that says about their pursuit of Hanafan, or maybe that's changed in the recent days if maybe Notre Dame thought that Flores is going to Ohio State. So I know that Tease wants to play offense. He thinks he's better there. He prefers it. I think he's a better corner probably, but I guess we got to see how everything plays out with the corner numbers and the receiver numbers. I think in a normal year he's a take, but in recruiting is at such a high level that maybe he's not. So it's a little bit interesting. Tease, I think if Notre Dame has a spot for him, I think he'd be in, but I don't know if they do. So like I said, it depends on, we're going to get some news here soon. Flores, Gray, spots are going to fill up, and we'll see if they put the press on him or just kind of let him go. So it'll be an interesting one to watch for sure. But you mentioned the flexibility. I like that a lot too. But it seems like he kind of wants that guarantee of where he's going to be. But, if you play multiple positions, things happen. Xavier Watts, for example. So if you're open to moving, or if you really are set on a position, I guess go to a school where you're going to be playing that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So while if you look at these rankings now, Notre Dame sits number 1, 2023, can't do better than that. Number 1, 2024, can't do better than that. If there's one knock on 23, it's the big elephant that's always been in the room. Okay, the quarterback situation for 23. I already mentioned how big picture, mission accomplished, giving the early portion of the Freeman era an elite high-level quarterback prospect you're going to have to be able to mature for the early part of Freeman. You're going to have that in C.J. Carr if it's a year later or whatever. But that's the biggest mission to me overall. We did it. 23's bugging people. What are your options now? Where are you at? Avery Johnson was known as a backup idea. I believe he put out a final 3. Notre Dame's not on the list. Do you try and go get Arnold from Oklahoma? Do you still hope Dante rejects a Nike deal from Oregon? Do you have Carr reclassified? Like, where are we at with that?
I think, especially with the Johnson news now, and also I don't know how he feels about that being a backup option. I gotta imagine in a recruitment, if you're the kid, doesn't that feel weird? I mean, I get if you want to be at Notre Dame, but them jumping back into the race with you after they miss on their top couple targets is weird. But I think option number 1 is getting Carr to reclassify. So he's taking the classes. It's been widely reported that he's been taking the classes in order to do so. It sounds like it's going to be his decision when whether he wants that extra year of high school ball or not. I would like to see him. I think it's great either way, really. I'd like to see him have another year of high school ball because there's a lot to be said for that and an experience factor. But getting him another year with Tommy Rees, how long is Rees really going to be here would be huge as well. So a name that I haven't heard a ton about, but a name I'm interested in is the kid committed to Iowa, Marco Linus. I like him a lot. I don't know. There was interest there at some point until Notre Dame kind of narrowed down their couple of guys, and Vizina, Arnold, and Moore, and ended up looks like not getting any of them. So I don't know if kicking the tires with Arnold is even worth it. I know it seemed like Notre Dame's pursuit or lack thereof of Vizina seemed like it kind of had him frustrated a little bit. I think if Notre Dame went all in on him, they probably get him. But there was a reason to feel great about Dante Moore for a long time. He had his chance to commit and didn't. So I think there's more of the story to be written on Dante Moore. I don't think it's over yet. He wants to continue riding this out. Oregon seems to be the spot everybody's projecting right now, but it's been all over the place. You hear stuff about Texas A&M, Michigan, Notre Dame. So it seems like any of 5 schools could get him at the moment. You like to see Notre Dame's not going to stop recruiting him. That's an absolute fact. So get him on campus again, do something. But Oregon's the team to beat at the moment, it seems. But if you can get Carter reclassify and get Julian Sayin in 2024, then you're in great shape. That's awesome. I think those are probably the 1 and 2 best quarterbacks, and maybe 2 and 3. I really like the kid committed to Ohio State, Raiola. So, Notre Dame's in a good spot. I understand the question marks, but once you get a firm, definite idea of what CJ Carr is going to do, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Is there a scenario where there's not a quarterback in 23? Like, is that an actual scenario, or will they find somebody, but it's going to be a guy that doesn't get everybody excited like CJ Carr, Dante Moore, Julian Sayin? Like, is that even an option, or do you just keep going down your list? Do you find the guy that wants to be at Notre Dame and they go? Like,
I think you have to take a guy, even if he doesn't have the fanfare or the stars, whatever, you have to take a guy that you at least believe in. You believe in the upside. You think that a couple years in the system, a couple years under Reese, he can be something for you. So I think every single class you have to take a quarterback. I think that's pretty much the status quo for just about every somewhat big-time college football program. So some more names could emerge if Notre Dame's truly out of the race for Dante Moore, and that'll come here soon. As we get through summer, a lot of especially quarterbacks like to make decisions before their senior year starts, or even 2 years before, as we saw with CJ Carr. So you'd like to see Notre Dame narrow down some names or potentially have some more names emerge. You just really like to see the CJ Carr and Dante Moore situations rectify themselves and move on.
Yeah, it's just that's the one little thing, that you could point to at 23 as a frustration. And it would be 100 times bigger deal if you didn't already have the CJ Carr commitment. Definitely. So that makes me feel a little better. Now, here's the final thing on this that I've heard talked about, and I don't know how realistic it is or not, is in this day and age where everybody thinks they know everything that's going on all the time, is there such a thing as sniffing around some other committed guys, but in a low-key way to where it isn't ND Nation front page news, or I'm not talking about it? Like, is that still a thing maybe where there's guys committed and Notre Dame's poking, but nobody knows? Or is that a thing of the past?
I think all programs do that, and it's not always reported because it's kind of a black ie, if you will. But
that's what I mean, yeah.
College football's a dirty game, but guys that are really in the know, national recruiting reporters, or the guys that are really in the know, Tom Loyes, for example, that they know a ton of what's going on. They don't report it because they can't. So that's how you get to know names early on. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do to be recruiting committed guys, but if it happens to Notre Dame guys, I mean, are you just going to lay down and take that? They're trying to do the right thing by not accepting that Calvin Simpson Hunt, the corner from Texas Tech, or committed to Texas Tech, wanted to visit Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's trying to do the right thing like they do in just about everything. And in that not allowing him to visit, Notre Dame doesn't want its committed prospects going anywhere on visits. So trying to do the right thing in an ugly world, it's difficult. So I respect them for trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anybody else that's on your immediate radar we didn't cover yet? That's pretty much what the guys I wanted to run through with you that hit my mind. Anything else going on we need to be aware of right now that I didn't mention?
Not a ton, really. That was a pretty good list. There's a lot of news coming up in the next week or two. So, yes, definitely stay tuned for that. Hopefully a lot more good news rolling in for Notre Dame.
Hey, I'll tell you, it would be in a rough time in this country as far as everybody having a good time and celebrating. If this whole 4th of July week thing goes Notre Dame's way, like one domino into the next, into the next, into the next, that's going to build some major excitement, because I've never seen this fan base as engaged in recruiting as it is right now. Never in my life ever has it been like this.
No, you got casual people, I have family members that they're Notre Dame fans, but they don't follow recruiting. They watch the guys that are on the field, and you kind of pick your favorites or whatever. But they know that I'm involved in recruiting. So again, casual people texting me, "Hey, what's up with this guy, CJ Carr? Where'd that come from?" This kind of thing. So now they're following it themselves. I think that's great.
Yep. So, Mason, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Everybody, follow him on Twitter at @MasonPlummer_, and find him on the Golden Homers podcast. Anything else, Mason?
That's about it. Yeah, follow me there on Twitter. You see a lot of Notre Dame stuff, occasional ranting about the White Sox. You see that from John and I both. So if you want to avoid that, don't feel like you need to, but it's a difficult existence at the moment.
That's for sure. Mason, thanks for being here. Happy 4th of July, my friend.
Same to you. Get better.
Take care.